Have you ever felt like the harder you try to hold on to someone, the faster they slip away? Maybe you've been in a situation where you gave everything, your time, energy, emotions, only to feel overlooked or unappreciated. What if I told you that the solution isn't to give more or try harder, but to do something that feels completely counterintuitive? Walk away? Now you might be wondering, how can walking away possibly make me more attractive? It seems like stepping back would lead to losing someone entirely. That's a common misconception, and it's one that keeps so many people stuck in unbalanced relationships, chasing validation and approval. But here's the truth. Attraction isn't built through chasing. It's built through self-respect, boundaries, and sometimes distance. This isn't a gimmick or a manipulation tactic. It's about harnessing a principle rooted in Stoic relationships. Valuing yourself enough to let go when necessary. Walking away isn't about abandoning people. It's about reclaiming your power, shifting the dynamic, and allowing others to truly see your worth. So why does walking away work so powerfully? That's what we're uncovering today. By the end of this video, you'll have a crystal clear understanding of how walking away changes the game entirely. You'll discover why absence sparks desire, how self-worth is the ultimate attractor, and why creating space in a relationship can lead to deeper connection. This isn't just a relationship hack. It's a transformative mindset rooted in stoicism and personal growth. Let's dive in, starting with the first and perhaps the most fundamental truth about walking away: the power of absence. 1. The power of absence. Have you ever noticed how much more we value things when they're out of reach? A favorite childhood toy left behind, a missed opportunity, or even the time spent with someone who is no longer around. They all seem to gain a special significance in hindsight. Why is that? It's because absence magnifies value. This psychological phenomenon doesn't just apply to objects or moments, it's deeply relevant to relationships. When you walk away, when you create space, you're not disappearing, you're allowing someone the opportunity to truly see your worth. But what makes absence so powerful? To answer this, let's start with a simple truth. Humans are naturally drawn to what they can't easily have. In relationships, constant availability can sometimes create a sense of predictability, even complacency. When you're always there, always answering texts immediately, always accommodating, always giving, you may unintentionally send the message that your time and presence are not something to be cherished. Walking away changes that equation entirely. Absence interrupts the flow of familiarity and introduces something intriguing: space. Space for reflection, for curiosity, for the realization of what might be lost. Without this space, people often take things for granted, not because they don't care, but because they've never had the chance to imagine life without it. When you step away, you give them that chance. You allow them to feel your absence, and in doing so, you reveal the depth of your value. This isn't manipulation, it's a reality check for both parties. But stepping away isn't easy, is it? There's often a fear of being forgotten. Many of us cling to relationships, even unhealthy ones, because we're terrified that if we step back, the other person might simply move on. Here's where the philosophy of Stoicism becomes invaluable. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control and let go of what we cannot. You can't control whether someone will miss you, but you can control your decision to walk away with dignity and self-respect. Walking away also shifts the balance of power in a profound way. When you stay in a dynamic where you're the one always chasing, always giving, you place the power entirely in the other person's hands. Walking away reclaims that power. It sends a message, not just to the other person, but to yourself, that you value your time and energy enough to stop pouring them into a one-sided connection. This shift often sparks a deep change in the dynamic. Consider this. Have you ever noticed how people seem to chase what retreats from them? It's not a game, it's human psychology. When someone steps back, it creates a sense of uncertainty. That uncertainty fuels curiosity, which in turn fuels attraction. By walking away, you're not making yourself unreachable, You're showing that your presence is something that must be earned, not taken for granted. Let's pause for a moment and reflect on the bigger picture. Walking away isn't just about making someone miss you. It's about creating clarity. Sometimes when you step back, you realize that the connection wasn't as strong as you thought, or that the other person doesn't value you in the way you deserve. While that realization can be painful, it's also liberating. It frees you from investing in something that isn't mutual. Absence is a mirror. It reflects the true nature of the relationship, both for you and for the other person. If they don't notice your absence, or if they don't make an effort to reach out, it's a clear sign that their investment wasn't as deep as yours. And as hard as that might be to accept, isn't it better to know the truth than to live in uncertainty? On the other hand, if your absence prompts them to reflect and reach out, it creates a new opportunity for the connection to grow, this time built on mutual respect. Walking away also offers a chance to focus on yourself. How often do we get so wrapped up in relationships that we neglect our own growth? When you step back, you're not just giving the other person space, you're giving yourself space to realign with your values, goals, and needs. This is a central tenet of Stoicism: self-mastery and inner fulfillment. The more you cultivate your own happiness, the more attractive you become, not just to others, but to yourself. Think of absence as a gift, both to yourself and to the other person. It's a test, a reset, and a revelation all at once. It tests the strength of the relationship, resets any unhealthy dynamics, and reveals the true nature of the connection. Whether the other person steps forward or falls away, you gain clarity, and clarity is one of the most powerful tools you can have in life and love. Now, let's consider the emotional aspect. It's normal to feel anxious when you walk away. What if they don't notice? What if they find someone else? These fears are valid but often exaggerated. In reality, walking away rarely causes someone to forget you. Instead, it forces them to confront your absence and decide what it means to them. And if they don't reach out, that tells you everything you need to know. It's not a loss, it's a redirection towards something better. Absence works because it's rooted in authenticity. You're not playing games or pretending to be something you're not. You're simply saying, this is my boundary, this is my worth. And boundaries, when set with clarity and kindness, are incredibly attractive. They show strength, self-awareness, and self-respect, qualities that are magnetic in any relationship. In Stoic relationships, this principle is even more profound. Walking away aligns with the Stoic philosophy of focusing on what you control and releasing attachment to external outcomes. It's not about forcing someone to value you. It's about valuing yourself enough to step back and let them choose. And when someone chooses to value you out of genuine recognition, rather than obligation or convenience, the connection is infinitely more meaningful. So what does walking away mean for you? It's a chance to reclaim your power, to reset the dynamic, and to cultivate your own inner strength. It's not the end of a relationship, it's the beginning of a new way of relating, one that's built on mutual respect and genuine connection. When you allow someone to feel your absence, you're not just giving them space, you're giving them the opportunity to see what they stand to lose. And in that moment, you reveal not only your value to them, but also your value to yourself. Isn't that worth the temporary discomfort of stepping back? 2. Self-worth is the ultimate attractor. What does self-worth really mean to you? Is it something you feel inherently, or does it depend on how others treat you? Take a moment to think about that. The way we perceive our own value shapes every interaction we have, especially in relationships. And here's the truth. The way others value you is often a direct reflection of how you value yourself. If you've ever felt like someone doesn't respect or appreciate you, it might be time to ask, am I showing them how to treat me through my own actions? When you walk away from a situation that doesn't honor your worth, you're sending a clear and powerful message. I deserve better. This isn't arrogance or pride, it's the foundation of healthy relationships. Self-worth is the ultimate attractor because people are naturally drawn to those who radiate confidence and authenticity. It's a kind of magnetism that can't be faked, because it comes from within. But let's be honest, cultivating self-worth isn't always easy. It requires unlearning old habits, breaking cycles of validation seeking, and standing firm in the face of uncertainty. Many of us grow up believing that our value depends on external approval. We bend over backward to please others, thinking that if we give enough, we'll finally be worthy of love. But what happens instead? We overgive, overstay, and overcompensate, only to feel overlooked and unappreciated. This is why walking away is such a powerful act of self-worth. It's not about rejection, it's about redirection. When you step away from something that doesn't align with your value, you're not just saying no to that situation, you're saying yes to yourself. And that's where true attractiveness begins. Now, let's dig deeper into why self-worth is so magnetic. People are naturally drawn to individuals who respect themselves because it signals stability, independence, and emotional strength. Think about it. Would you rather be around someone who is constantly seeking validation or someone who is comfortable and confident in their own skin? The latter creates a sense of security and trust, key ingredients in any meaningful connection. Walking away shows that you're not afraid to stand alone. It's a reminder that your happiness isn't dependent on anyone else. This is a core principle in Stoicism, recognizing that external things, people, relationships, situations are beyond our control. What is within our control is how we perceive ourselves and the standards we set for our lives. By walking away, you align your actions with your values, and that alignment is incredibly attractive. Let's consider a scenario. Imagine you're in a relationship where you're always the one initiating conversations, making plans, and putting in the effort. At first, it might feel fulfilling to give so much, but over time, it starts to feel one-sided. You begin to question if the other person truly values you, or if they're simply comfortable with the dynamic you've created. This is where self-worth becomes your compass. Instead of continuing to pour into a connection that doesn't reciprocate, walking away creates space for the other person to reflect on what you mean to them, and for you to reclaim your energy. Does this mean the other person will always come running back? No, and that's okay. Walking away isn't about eliciting a specific response. It's about living in alignment with your own worth. Sometimes the act of walking away reveals that the connection wasn't as strong as you hoped. Other times it's the catalyst for growth and deeper understanding in the relationship. Either way, you win because you've chosen yourself. So what does self-worth look like in practice? It's not just about walking away from unhealthy situations. It's about walking toward opportunities that nourish you. It's about investing in your growth, prioritizing your happiness, and surrounding yourself with people who uplift and inspire you. When you operate from a place of self-worth, you stop chasing approval and start attracting respect. This is where Stoicism plays a transformative role. The Stoic philosophy teaches us to detach from external outcomes and focus on internal mastery. In relationships, this means letting go of the need for constant validation and instead finding fulfillment in your own growth. Walking away isn't just an act of self-worth, it's a declaration that you are whole and complete on your own. And that wholeness, it's irresistible. Now let me ask you this. How often do you prioritize your own needs in relationships? Do you feel like your actions reflect your worth, or do you sometimes settle for less than you deserve? Take a moment to reflect on these questions. And if you're resonating with this message so far, I want to hear from you. Like this video and comment number 1 if you're ready to step into your power and embrace your self-worth. But don't stop there. Subscribe to this channel for more insights on Stoic relationships, personal growth, and building meaningful connections. By subscribing, you're taking a step toward a deeper understanding of how to cultivate relationships that honor your value. Plus, you'll be part of a community that's committed to growth and authenticity. As we move forward, keep this truth in mind. Self-worth isn't something you earn, it's something you embody. It's a mindset, a way of being that influences every relationship you have. When you walk away, you're not just leaving something behind, you're stepping into the most empowered version of yourself. And that, more than anything, is what draws people in. Stay tuned, because next we'll explore how breaking the cycle of neediness can transform your relationships and amplify your magnetism. You don't want to miss this. 3. Breaking the cycle of neediness. Let's face it, neediness is something we've all experienced at some point in our lives. It's that overwhelming desire for someone's attention, approval, or affection that can make us act in ways that feel out of alignment with who we truly are. But here's the paradox. The more we cling, the more we push people away. It's a cycle that feeds on itself, creating insecurity on one side and suffocation on the other. Breaking free from this cycle is not only liberating, but it also fundamentally changes how others perceive and respond to you. Neediness often stems from fear. The fear of being alone, of not being enough, or of losing something or someone we value. This fear can manifest in subtle ways, like overthinking a text or seeking constant reassurance. Or it can show up more overtly, like overcommitting to someone who isn't reciprocating, or holding on to a relationship that clearly isn't serving you. The common thread in all of these behaviors is a reliance on external validation to feel whole. But here's a question worth asking. What if you didn't need anyone else to complete you? What if you could find fulfillment within yourself? This isn't just a hypothetical. It's a mindset shift that breaks the chains of neediness and transforms your relationships. It starts with recognizing that you are already enough, just as you are. Walking away plays a critical role in breaking this cycle. When you step back from a relationship or dynamic that's become unbalanced, you're not only creating space for the other person to reflect, you're also creating space for yourself to grow. This act of stepping away sends a powerful signal that your happiness and sense of self-worth are not dependent on someone else's presence or approval. It's a declaration of independence, and it's deeply rooted in Stoic philosophy. Stoicism teaches us that we can't control how others behave, but we can control how we respond. If someone isn't meeting your needs or valuing you the way you deserve, clinging tighter won't change that. In fact, it often has the opposite effect. By walking away, you're not abandoning them. You're abandoning the pattern of neediness that's keeping you stuck. And in doing so, you're giving yourself the freedom to focus on what truly matters: your own growth and well-being. Breaking the cycle of neediness also requires a shift in focus. Instead of constantly looking outward for validation, you begin to look inward. You ask yourself questions like, what do I want? What makes me happy? What can I do to enrich my life, regardless of who is in it? These are not easy questions to answer, but they are essential for building the kind of self-reliance that attracts genuine connection. Here's something to consider. When you stop seeking validation, you start radiating confidence. People are naturally drawn to those who exude self-assuredness because it creates a sense of stability and trust. When you break free from neediness, you're no longer approaching relationships from a place of lack. Instead, you're approaching them from a place of abundance because you already feel whole. This shift changes everything. But what about the fear of losing someone? That fear is often the root of neediness. It's what keeps us stuck in unhealthy patterns, clinging to relationships that aren't serving us. Walking away doesn't mean you don't care, it means you're choosing not to let fear dictate your actions. In Stoicism, this is known as focusing on what is within your control. You can't control whether someone stays or goes, but you can control your decision to respect yourself enough to walk away when necessary. Let's imagine a scenario. You're in a relationship where you feel like you're always the one making the effort. You're constantly initiating plans, seeking reassurance, and trying to keep the connection alive. Over time, this dynamic starts to feel draining. But instead of stepping back, you double down, hoping that if you just try harder, things will improve. Sound familiar? It's a classic example of the neediness cycle. Now imagine what would happen if, instead of trying harder, you stepped back. You stopped chasing, stopped overgiving, and instead focused on yourself. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, even terrifying. But as time goes on, something begins to shift. You start to realize that your worth isn't tied to someone else's response. And as you reclaim your energy and focus on your own happiness, the dynamic changes. The other person begins to notice your absence and, more importantly, your confidence. This isn't about playing games, it's about breaking a pattern that doesn't serve you. When you stop clinging, you create space for mutual respect, and genuine connection to grow. You allow the other person the freedom to choose, and in doing so, you empower yourself to do the same. Breaking the cycle of neediness is an act of courage. It requires letting go of the need for constant reassurance and embracing the uncertainty of walking away. But in that uncertainty lies growth, freedom, and ultimately, a deeper sense of self-worth. It's not about rejecting others, it's about rejecting a mindset that keeps you stuck in cycles of dependency. So what would happen if you let go? If you stopped clinging and started trusting that you are enough, no matter what? That's the essence of Stoic relationships, knowing that your value is not defined by anyone else but by the way you choose to show up in the world. When you break the cycle of neediness, you're not just transforming your relationships, you're transforming yourself. And that's the most attractive thing of all. 4. Mystery and intrigue are magnetic. Why is it that we're so drawn to mystery? Think about the books you can't put down, the movies that keep you on the edge of your seat, or the people who seem to have an air of intrigue about them. Mystery captivates us because it invites us to explore, to wonder, and to seek answers. And in relationships, this same principle applies. When you walk away, you create an element of unpredictability that naturally draws people in. Let's start with a simple question. How predictable are you in your relationships? Do people always know where you stand, what you'll do, and how you'll respond? While consistency is important, there's a difference between being reliable and being entirely predictable. When someone always knows what to expect, the dynamic can lose its spark. Walking away introduces just the right amount of mystery to reignite that spark. Mystery works because it activates curiosity. When someone doesn't know what you're thinking or what you'll do next, they start to wonder about you. That wonder creates interest, and interest leads to attraction. By walking away, you're not being distant or cold. You're simply creating space for someone to engage with you on a deeper level. This is a principle deeply aligned with Stoicism, which teaches us to act with intention and to focus on what truly matters. In this case, it's about fostering meaningful connections instead of forcing shallow interactions. But let's be clear. Mystery isn't about playing games or being manipulative. It's about maintaining a sense of individuality and independence that keeps others intrigued. When you walk away, you remind people that you have a life beyond the relationship. You're signaling that while you value the connection, you're not entirely defined by it. And that's incredibly attractive. Now, here's the challenge. Maintaining mystery requires confidence and self-assurance. It's tempting to overshare or over-explain in an effort to connect with someone, especially if you feel like the relationship is slipping away. But when you resist that urge, you give the other person space to come toward you. And in that space, intrigue grows. Let's dive deeper into the psychology of mystery. People are naturally drawn to what feels elusive. This isn't about creating unnecessary distance. It's about letting your actions speak louder than your words. When you walk away, you're showing, not telling, that you respect yourself and your boundaries. This silent confidence is far more compelling than any explanation or justification you could give. For example, imagine someone who is always available, always responding immediately, and always eager to please. While their intentions might be genuine, their constant availability can come across as overly predictable. Now, contrast that with someone who occasionally steps back, focuses on their own goals, and doesn't always prioritize the relationship above everything else. The latter person exudes a sense of independence that naturally piques curiosity. Walking away, even temporarily, creates this effect. Mystery also keeps the focus on mutual effort. When you walk away, you're giving the other person a chance to reflect on what you mean to them. Do they miss your presence? Do they take the time to reach out and reconnect? These moments of uncertainty can reveal a lot about the strength of the relationship. And in the process, you're teaching them that your time and attention are privileges, not guarantees. This is why mystery and intrigue are such powerful tools, not as manipulation, but as authentic expressions of your self-worth. Walking away isn't about creating drama, it's about creating balance. It's about reminding both yourself and the other person that relationships thrive when they're built on mutual respect, effort, and curiosity. Now, let's talk about how you can cultivate this sense of mystery in your own life. Start by focusing on yourself. Pursue your passions, invest in your growth, and create a life that's fulfilling, regardless of who is or isn't in it. When you're genuinely engaged in your own journey, you naturally exude an air of intrigue because your energy isn't solely focused on the relationship. This aligns with Stoicism, which encourages us to find contentment within ourselves rather than relying on external circumstances. Another way to maintain mystery is to embrace unpredictability. This doesn't mean being inconsistent or unreliable. It means occasionally stepping outside of your usual patterns. Surprise people with your actions, whether it's by pursuing a new hobby, taking a spontaneous trip, or simply stepping back from the relationship for a while. These moments of unpredictability remind others that you're a dynamic, multifaceted person with a life of your own. So let me ask you this. Are you ready to embrace the power of mystery in your relationships? If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like this video and comment number 1 if you're inspired to cultivate more intrigue and authenticity in your connections. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more insights into Stoic relationships, personal growth, and the dynamics that make relationships thrive. When you subscribe, you're not just joining a channel, you're becoming part of a community that values growth, self-worth, and meaningful connection. Remember, mystery isn't about hiding who you are, it's about revealing yourself slowly, authentically, and intentionally. It's about showing that you're a whole person with your own dreams, passions, and priorities. And when you do that, you create a sense of intrigue that's irresistible. Stay tuned, because next, we'll explore the role of boundaries in building attraction and commanding respect. You won't want to miss it. 5. The role of boundaries in attraction. Have you ever stopped to consider what boundaries truly mean in a relationship? They're not just about saying no to things you don't want. They're about defining who you are, what you value, and how you expect to be treated. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your sense of self while guiding others on how to engage with you. And here's the surprising truth. Setting clear, firm boundaries isn't just healthy, it's incredibly attractive. Boundaries are often misunderstood. Some people fear that setting boundaries will make them seem distant or difficult, while others avoid them out of a desire to be liked. But in reality, boundaries are an act of self-respect. They show that you have a strong sense of your own worth and that you're not willing to compromise on the things that matter most to you. This is a cornerstone of Stoicism, living in alignment with your principles and refusing to let external factors dictate your sense of peace. When you walk away from someone who violates your boundaries, you're sending a powerful message. I value myself enough to enforce the standards I've set for my life. This isn't about punishing the other person, it's about protecting your emotional well-being. And the result? People are naturally drawn to those who have the strength to stand firm in their convictions. It's a quiet confidence that speaks volumes without the need for words. But why are boundaries so attractive? It comes down to trust and respect. When you establish clear limits, you're showing that you know who you are and what you want. This creates a sense of stability which is deeply appealing. People respect those who respect themselves, and boundaries are a tangible way of demonstrating that self-respect. Now, think about the opposite scenario, relationships without boundaries. When you consistently compromise your values or allow others to overstep your limits, it often leads to resentment, frustration, and a loss of self-respect. Over time, this dynamic erodes the connection and creates a sense of imbalance. Walking away from these situations isn't an act of defeat, it's an act of reclaiming your power. Walking away also reinforces your boundaries in a way that words alone cannot. It's one thing to say, "This behavior isn't acceptable to me," but it's another to take action when those words aren't respected. Actions speak louder than words, and walking away is a definitive action that leaves no room for misinterpretation. It's a way of saying, I take my boundaries seriously, and I expect you to as well. But let's address a common concern. What if enforcing boundaries drives people away? This fear often prevents us from setting limits, leading to relationships where we feel undervalued or taken advantage of. The reality is that boundaries don't push away the right people, they filter out the wrong ones. The people who truly value you will respect your boundaries, even if it requires adjustment or effort on their part. And the ones who don't, they're not meant to stay in your life. Boundaries also create space for mutual respect. When you enforce your own limits, you encourage others to do the same, fostering a dynamic where both parties feel valued and understood. This is where Stoicism offers a valuable perspective. Focus on what you can control, your actions, your boundaries, and your responses, rather than trying to control how others react. By staying true to your principles, you create the conditions for healthier, more balanced relationships. Here's another powerful aspect of boundaries. They're a form of self-care. When you set limits, you're prioritizing your own needs and well-being. This might mean saying no to things that drain your energy, stepping away from toxic dynamics, or refusing to settle for less than you deserve. Each time you enforce a boundary, you're affirming your own worth. And this affirmation doesn't go unnoticed, it radiates outward, making you more attractive to others. Boundaries also help create clarity in relationships. When you're clear about what you will and won't tolerate, you eliminate ambiguity. This doesn't mean you have to be rigid or inflexible. Healthy boundaries are adaptable and take into account the needs of both parties. But they also provide a framework for navigating conflicts and challenges with respect and understanding. For example, imagine you're in a relationship where your time and energy are constantly being taken for granted. You might feel tempted to keep giving, hoping the other person will eventually notice and appreciate your efforts. But without clear boundaries, this dynamic is unlikely to change. Walking away in this scenario isn't about giving up. It's about giving the other person the opportunity to step up. By enforcing your boundaries, you're creating the conditions for mutual growth. Setting boundaries is an act of courage. It requires you to be honest with yourself about what you need and to communicate those needs clearly to others. It also requires you to accept that not everyone will be willing or able to meet those standards, and that's okay. Walking away from those who can't respect your boundaries isn't a loss. It's a victory for your self-worth. So what do your boundaries say about you? Are they strong and clear, reflecting a deep sense of self-respect? Or are they blurred and flexible, leaving room for others to take advantage? Take a moment to reflect on this, because the boundaries you set or fail to set have a profound impact on the quality of your relationships. Remember, walking away isn't about punishment or power plays. It's about honoring your own needs and creating space for relationships that align with your values. Boundaries are not barriers, they're bridges that connect you to others in a way that's respectful, balanced, and authentic. And when you live with that kind of clarity and intention, you naturally become more attractive, not just to others, but to yourself. 6. Reclaiming your power. What does it mean to truly reclaim your power in a relationship? For many, power might sound like control or dominance, but in reality, reclaiming your power is about regaining agency over your emotions, actions, and choices. It's about stepping out of patterns that leave you feeling drained or undervalued and stepping into a mindset where your worth isn't dictated by someone else's opinion. And walking away is one of the most effective ways to reclaim that power. Let's start with a question. How much of your energy do you devote to relationships that aren't serving you? Do you find yourself overthinking every interaction, waiting anxiously for a text, or compromising your values just to keep someone around? If the answer is yes, it's time to ask yourself why. Walking away from these dynamics isn't a loss. It's a declaration that you're no longer willing to invest in something that doesn't align with your worth. Reclaiming your power is about shifting your focus inward. Instead of trying to control how someone else feels about you, you focus on how you feel about yourself. This is where Stoicism provides valuable guidance. The philosophy teaches us to concentrate on what we can control, our thoughts, actions, and choices, and to release attachment to outcomes we cannot dictate. When you embrace this mindset, you free yourself from the need for external validation. Walking away might feel like a risk, especially if you're deeply invested in the relationship. But consider this. What's the greater risk, losing someone who doesn't value you, or losing yourself in the process of trying to hold on? Reclaiming your power means prioritizing your well-being, even if it means facing temporary discomfort or uncertainty. It's an act of courage, one that signals to both yourself and others that you refuse to settle for less than you deserve. When you walk away, you're also resetting the dynamic of the relationship. In many cases, people fall into patterns where one person is always giving and the other is always taking. Walking away disrupts this imbalance and forces the other person to reflect on their role. Or do they step up and meet you halfway? Or do they let the relationship fade? Either way, you gain clarity, and clarity is power. But what does it look like to reclaim your power in practical terms? It starts with setting boundaries, as we discussed earlier, and enforcing them through your actions. For example, if you've communicated that you need more effort or respect from someone, and they continue to dismiss your needs, walking away shows that you're serious about honoring your own standards. It's a way of saying, I value myself too much to stay in a situation that doesn't align with my principles. Reclaiming your power also means shifting the focus back to yourself. It's about pouring energy into your own growth, passions, and happiness instead of trying to fix or maintain a relationship that's draining you. When you invest in yourself, you naturally become more confident, fulfilled, and magnetic. People are drawn to those who have a sense of purpose and independence because it signals strength and stability. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine a version of yourself who no longer needs external validation to feel whole. What does that version of you look like? How do they carry themselves, make decisions, and interact with others? Walking away is a step toward becoming that person. It's an act of self-trust, trusting that you can navigate the uncertainty, that you can handle being alone, and that you can create a fulfilling life on your own terms. Of course, walking away isn't always about leaving for good. Sometimes it's about creating space for reflection and growth, both for you and the other person. When you step back, you give the relationship a chance to reset. The other person has an opportunity to reflect on what you mean to them and to take responsibility for their actions. And you have a chance to reevaluate what you truly want and need. But let's be honest, reclaiming your power can be uncomfortable. It requires you to confront fears and insecurities, to face the possibility of loss, and to trust that you're making the right decision even when the outcome is uncertain. This is where Stoicism becomes a powerful tool. By focusing on what you can control and letting go of attachment to outcomes, you build resilience and inner peace. Walking away becomes less about what you're leaving behind and more about what you're walking toward, a version of yourself that's empowered, self-assured, and aligned with your values. So what does reclaiming your power look like for you? Is it stepping away from a one-sided relationship? Is it choosing to prioritize your happiness over someone else's approval? Whatever it is, know that you have the strength to do it. And if this resonates with you, like this video and comment number 1 if you're ready to reclaim your power and step into your best self. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more insights into Stoic relationships, self-growth, and building authentic connections. When you subscribe, you're joining a community that values personal empowerment, resilience, and meaningful relationships. Reclaiming your power isn't about controlling others, it's about taking back control of your own life. It's about recognizing that you're the architect of your happiness and that you have the strength to walk away from anything that doesn't align with your worth. When you live with that kind of conviction, you inspire others to see your value, and more importantly, you see it for yourself. Stay tuned, because next we'll explore the psychology of loss and why walking away is often the most powerful way to spark realization and change. 7. The psychological impact of loss. Why is it that we often realize the true value of something only after it's gone? Whether it's a missed opportunity, a cherished object, or a meaningful relationship, loss has a way of sharpening our perspective. This phenomenon isn't just a quirk of human behavior. It's rooted in a powerful psychological principle known as loss aversion. We are wired to feel the pain of losing something more intensely than the pleasure of gaining something new. And when it comes to relationships, this principle can work in surprising ways. Walking away triggers the psychological impact of loss. When someone experiences your absence, they're forced to confront what they've been taking for granted. This isn't about manipulation, it's about creating space for genuine reflection. Your presence might have been so constant, so reliable, that its importance went unnoticed. But when you remove yourself, even temporarily, it creates a vacuum that demands attention. Suddenly, the things you brought to the table, your kindness, support, and unique qualities, become much harder to ignore. Let's explore why this happens. Human beings are creatures of habit. When we become accustomed to someone's presence, we can begin to treat it as a given, a constant that doesn't require much thought. It's not necessarily a sign of malice or lack of care, it's simply how the mind adapts to consistency. Walking away disrupts this pattern. It forces the other person to reassess the role you played in their life and to feel the weight of your absence. This reassessment can be deeply uncomfortable, and that's where its power lies. When someone is faced with the loss of a valued connection, they begin to question their own actions and priorities. Have they been showing enough appreciation? Have they reciprocated the effort and care you've given? These questions can lead to a newfound sense of clarity, and in many cases, a renewed desire to reconnect. Loss creates urgency, and urgency can reignite dormant feelings of attraction and appreciation. But let's turn the lens inward for a moment. The psychological impact of loss doesn't just apply to the other person. It also applies to you. Walking away often feels like a gamble because it forces you to confront your own fears and insecurities. What if they don't miss you? What if they move on? These are valid concerns, but they're also an opportunity for growth. Stoicism teaches us to face uncertainty with courage and to focus on what we can control: our actions, our boundaries, and our self-respect. By walking away, you're not just inviting the other person to reflect, you're giving yourself the same opportunity. You're stepping back to reassess what the relationship means to you and whether it aligns with your values and needs. This process of reflection can be transformative. It allows you to gain clarity about what you want, what you're willing to tolerate, and what you truly deserve. The psychological impact of loss also highlights the importance of scarcity. When something is abundant and easily accessible, its perceived value diminishes. By walking away, you're signaling that your time and presence are not limitless resources to be taken for granted. This creates a sense of scarcity that naturally increases your perceived value. It's not about withholding or playing games, it's about living in alignment with your worth and expecting others to do the same. Here's a key insight. Walking away doesn't guarantee that the other person will come back. And that's okay. The goal isn't to force a specific outcome, it's to create a dynamic where mutual respect and appreciation can thrive. If the other person chooses not to return, it's a clear sign that the connection wasn't as strong as it needed to be. And while that realization can be painful, it's also liberating. It frees you to move forward with clarity and confidence. At the same time, walking away can often be the catalyst for change. When someone feels the weight of losing you, they're more likely to take action to repair the relationship. This isn't about manipulation, it's about creating a space where genuine effort and mutual respect can grow. By walking away, you're showing that you value yourself enough to step back and let the other person meet you halfway. And if they do, the connection that emerges is often stronger and more balanced than before. Let's revisit the idea of loss aversion. This principle works because it taps into our deep-seated fear of losing something valuable. But it's important to remember that the value has to be real. Walking away is effective only when your presence was truly meaningful in the first place. This is why self-worth is so critical. When you invest in yourself, your growth, your passions, your happiness, you become someone whose absence is genuinely felt. The psychological impact of loss depends on the value you bring, so focus on becoming the best version of yourself. Walking away is a powerful act because it creates space for clarity, reflection, and growth. It forces both you and the other person to confront what the relationship truly means and whether it's worth fighting for. This process is not always easy, but it's necessary for building connections that are rooted in mutual respect and authenticity. So what does the psychological impact of loss mean for you? It's a reminder that your presence is a gift, not a given. It's an opportunity to reflect on your own worth and to set a standard for how you want to be treated. And most importantly, it's a chance to reclaim your power. not by controlling others, but by choosing to live in alignment with your values and priorities. Walking away is not the end of the story, it's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you prioritize your self-respect, create space for genuine connection, and embrace the transformative power of loss. It's a bold step, but one that can lead to the clarity and fulfillment you truly deserve. Walking away is one of the most profound acts of self-respect you can take in a relationship. It's not about playing games, seeking revenge, or manipulating someone into valuing you. It's about prioritizing your self-worth, setting boundaries, and creating space for genuine reflection and growth. It's a courageous step that says, I know my value and I'm willing to step back to honor it. Throughout this journey, we've explored why walking away is so powerful. We've seen how absence creates longing, how self-worth is the ultimate attractor, and how breaking the cycle of neediness can transform your relationships. We've delved into the magnetic pull of mystery, the importance of boundaries, the empowering act of reclaiming your power, and the deep psychological impact of loss. Each of these principles is rooted in self-respect and authenticity, qualities that lie at the heart of healthy, fulfilling relationships. But the true beauty of walking away is what it does for you. It's not just about changing how others see you, it's about changing how you see yourself. It's about stepping into a mindset of abundance, where you no longer settle for less than you deserve, and where you trust that the right connections will meet you at your level. It's a practice deeply aligned with Stoicism, teaching us to focus on what we can control, our values, our actions, and our responses, and to release attachment to what we cannot. As you reflect on everything we've discussed, ask yourself, what relationships in my life truly align with my worth? Where am I holding on out of fear, and where might I need to step back to honor myself? These are not easy questions, but they're essential for creating a life and relationships that reflect your highest values. Remember, walking away isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of something transformative. It's a powerful declaration of who you are and what you stand for. And in doing so, you don't just become more attractive to others, you become more magnetic to yourself, radiating confidence, clarity, and purpose. If this message resonates with you, take it as a sign to start living in alignment with your worth. You deserve relationships that inspire, uplift, and support you, and walking away from anything less is the first step toward creating space for that. Thank you for being part of this journey. Stay committed to your growth, honor your values, and remember that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. Stay strong, stay inspired, and may your relationships be a reflection of the powerful, worthy person you are.